Hey, what if you had an AI workflow that could dissect your competitors' most viral TikToks, the angles, the hooks, the scripts, the edits, all in minutes, and then hand you the playbook? Well, in this video, I'm going to spin up an n8n workflow that analyzes TikToks for you, watches them, and gives you ad angles and the winning elements to copy and paste into your brand's creative. You'll see exactly how to scrape your competition's most viral videos, use Google Gemini's video analysis capability to go beyond just script analysis, rank the videos by engagement, and then turn them into scripts and briefs that you can use for your brand and your team. Hey, I'm D from Right Hook, the growth agency behind some of the internet's favorite and fastest growing brands. I've recently jumped headfirst into building with AI. So, this channel is where I share everything that I'm learning and that I'm building. This creative analyst workflow that I've built recently shaves off hours of our creative research process. So I'm very excited to share it with you. And at the end, I also want to show you how you can improve the workflow and take it even further. All right, let's get into the breakdown of the workflow itself, the three different streams. Okay, let's get into it. First thing we have here is, of course, we kick it off with an intake form. We have every single field required. Okay, so TikTok username, TikTok handle, whatever you want to call it, that must be a field that is filled in. The number of posts to scrape, we put that in as a number. We can allow the user to sort by the latest posts, the most popular posts, or the oldest posts. And they are all lowercase because in the Apify actor, when it comes to the JSON, that's what the documentation asks for. And I'll show you that in a minute. We give the user also the option to whether they want to exclude pinned posts from what they're scraping. And finally, down here, I've got Google Sheet ID. Really, you can have Google Sheet URL if you wanted to. I just have ID just out of habit, really. So this is the first portion that we need. And speaking about Google Sheet ID, let's go to the Google Sheet itself. This is what the Google Sheet will look like. And if you go down to the description below, you'll get not only the JSON file for the entire workflow, but then also the sheet as well. So that way, within a template of the sheet, I mean, the one that you're looking at right now, so that way we have the three different tabs down here: overview, transcript patterns, and video patterns, and the right column headings as well, because we need to be able to map those. You'll see that in later nodes. We'll need to be able to map fields inside of n8n against these columns and the column titles. Okay. So we just want to make sure that that is in place. Let's go back in here. So grab the ID of my Google Sheet, and in the form, someone will then just enter it in a sheet ID like that, for example, right? Okay, so let's go back out here. Now, once we have this, let me just double click in here, and you'll see that this is what we need from Apify in terms of the URL. To be able to get that for yourself, top right, API, we want to go to the API endpoints, and the one we want is for the actor to run synchronously and get the dataset items as a post. That way, we are sending information to the API call, letting it run synchronously, waiting for it to finish, giving us the data set items back, the results of the scraping, and then proceed on to following steps, right? So all you got to do once you have an account inside of Apify is just copy, hit the copy button there and paste it into the URL here. It will also include your Apify token because you already have an account. So that part you don't have to then worry about in terms of authentication or any type of header auth fields. Now let's go down here and you'll see the settings that we want. These settings over here correspond to the JSON that is in here. So if you want to tinker around with this to explore for yourself, all you really need to do is go, okay, well, let's set this to FYP and let's set this to 100. In fact, let's go with 1,000. Why not? Because it's just for funsies. Without having to hit save or anything or even starting and running it, we can just go back to the JSON and you can see that it gives you the JSON for to copy and paste into n8n. So let's get rid of these really quickly. So that way you know where I am getting the JSON from. Profiles down here. You can see I've already punched in the profile that we want to do the scraping for, and I've turned on exclude pin posts. So anything that you want to tweak essentially in terms of your settings, you just play around with in here and then go into the JSON and it'll give you the JSON to copy over. Now, you'll notice back in here though that some of them are dynamic fields because of what was filled in the form. We want then for the field to be dynamic in this type of a way so that exclude pin posts can be true or false. Profile sorting, we can sort by latest, popular, oldest. Profiles, we're punching that in from the TikTok username, and results per page, we've asked the user for that as well. So we don't have to play around with this node and set it manually. It just pulls everything in the one go. That's it. Nothing else in this node. And once we finish the scraping, that's where we push it into the three different streams. The first stream being just getting the TikTok metrics. So from the data that comes out here, as you can see, we pulled 10 items. We just want to be able to map the different fields into the fields in this set metrics node. Really simple way to do that is just to take it and drag it over. Right, that's literally it. So for each item, it will pull out the different fields in here for us to then throw into our Google Sheet right here, Epsert metrics. There's no path back to node because I ran this on the advanced one before. As you can see, it's pinned. I just wanted to show you what the simple one looks like. And we'll talk about the advanced ones when we get to the workflow improvements. All right, so from here, we want to append or update row. I'm a fan of append or update, especially for demos like these where there are multiple runs and I have to make sure that we don't have any kind of duplicates. So we are matching on web video URL because of the fact that each web video URL will be unique anyway. So we can use that as the unique identifier. And the values to send would be everything inside of the sheet all the way up to caption. The transcript comes in the next stream. The visual analysis comes in the next streams as well as the pattern analyses. So that's why we have it all the way up to caption in there. Once this is, and then it'll just pull these values in here. And let me show you a finished version of this. So this is what a populated version looks like after we've hit the upsert metrics node in here. It will insert 10 items. And what you expect to see when you perform your run is 10 items in here, populated all the way up to caption. This would be empty and this would be empty. Okay. And from there, this one stream is done. We move on to the next stream. I want to hone in on this because it's fairly vital for making sure that downstream nodes don't error out. We can't assume that every single video is going to have subtitles or the transcript. So we need an if node in here just to make sure that if the subtitles exist, if subtitle links 0 because it's an array, download link exists, then we're going to push it down to true path. And if not, down the false path. This is a great example because there are 4 videos here that have no subtitles attached to the TikTok video itself. We're going to do some other stuff just so that we ensure that we have a clean table. So anytime that we work through with any type of APIs, it's just a personal preference of mine to put it through a loop or a split in batches, just so that we do not hit any type of rate limiting or hit any type of errors, and we can time things out. Personal preference of mine is, in this case, for this demo, we don't have a wait node, but if you really wanted to, anytime you're calling APIs, you can then loop through one item at a time and add a wait node in here, a wait node. And what this wait node allows you to do is then just put a little pause in here before the next loop continues. Let's just get rid of this wait node really quickly. Okay, so what happens? We start off with the loop. For each item that gets passed through, the first thing we're going to do is get the subtitles. and that is a simple HTTP request with a method of get, and we are throwing the download link from the previous node in here and making sure that we add the option of a response with text, and you can just leave it default as data. This is what comes out the other side. As you can see, it's not very human readable. So we want to be able to turn this into something that is human readable. And we do that at the next node to clean up the subtitles. This is what the input looks like, and this is what the output looks like. This code in here is just really simple code to strip out any of the new lines, get rid of the web VTT, which is standard from all of the the subtitle pulls that we do, and we want to just turn it into plain text like this. And from here, that would then get edited so that we have the web video URL to match inside of the table. So we're not adding new rows. This is going to be unique. And then the transcript, we're just pulling out a plain text. These are the only two items that come out of this edit fields node, which then gets upserted into the transcript. So when as each loop, each one run of a loop is getting performed, what you would start to see inside of your table in real time when you run it is that the transcripts start getting populated against the right web URL. And for ones that have no transcript, we're going to have a null, because any type of false where there are no, if subtitles do not exist, right? Subtitles exist as false, then all we're doing here is saying for find this web video URL and insert null into the transcript. I jumped a little bit ahead there with the false. Let's go back to the loop. So once all of these are done, this is where the aggregated analysis happens. Once all the loops are done, it's going to spit out 6 items. We really want to be able to merge those into one item, a list with different items, one list with different items. As you can see, it spits out one item for then an LLM to be able to analyze the aggregated list of items to then be able to extract patterns and insights across multiple videos. So we only want to analyze, of course, items that have a transcript. And all we're doing here is just merging them, aggregating through individual fields, and dragging transcript, throwing it in here, and merging the list. And this is what's going to come out the other side in, if you view it through a JSON format. If you look at the schema, you can see that it is transcript 0, 1, 2, all the way through to the last one. This is what we feed into our large language model. I have chosen to use, in this case, 3.7 Sonnet. You can play around with different models to balance out quality cost per call. But let's have a look at what we're feeding into it. So we have a transcript in here. That's what's coming in. Let me talk you through the system prompt as well as the user prompt. This will play also into the workflow improvements section when we talk about that later. Giving it first a stipulate what the role that we want the LLM to play is. So you're a creative strategist GPT, senior D2C video ad analyst. Your sole mission is to mine user-supplied TikTok transcripts for actionable creative insights. The mindset part really is further setting it to go, this is the approach that we want you to take when you're performing your analysis. And these are the areas that we want you to look out for, whether that's hooks, story beats, engagement moves. These are the ones that we have inside the prompt right now. And we're also setting in some formatting rules. Keep it short, keep it concrete, keep it copy pastable. Do not make stuff up, and do not output anything outside of the single JSON object. So we don't want it to be verbose and be like, all right, I have gone and done my research, and then giving you the JSON, because that just makes it really difficult to extract in the next step, which is let me just go back here, which is turn this very hard to read. Let me show you the JSON version. this, which is again difficult for a human to read because of the JSON formatting as well as the new line breaks. We're just adding another code node in here, very similar to this one, where we're just turning it into readable text. I'm just going to skip through that because we're going to read code. We're not going to do that, especially if you've already gotten your version of it in the description down below. And from the readable text, all we are doing is inserting the analysis into transcript patterns. Let me show you the finished version. So that's what this looks like. It's going to analyze these transcripts, transcript, 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 and give us ideas around what are the hooks that exist within the data set that we provided it. What are the story beats, engagement moves, all the way through to even adoption ideas for ways that our brand can adopt, or any brand can adopt tactics from what this particular brand that we're researching is doing. More on the improvement portion later. So that essentially wraps up the analyze transcripts portion. If they exist, loop through, and then do each one, insert it into our Google Sheet, and then analyze the aggregation of the transcripts, insert that into the Google Sheet. And if they don't exist, just put a null in there just so that it is nice and clean and we have nulls rather than an empty cell. All right, let's move on to the final part of the flow. This part is this part of the flow. This section is where I get excited because of what Google Gemini and being able to call the API allows us to do. Let me show you. So we're looping again. You know me and my loops by now. For each item, we're doing a bunch of stuff before we then aggregate and have some analyses in here. The bunch of stuff that we're doing, in fact, is a visual analysis of each individual video. So that's helpful because now we have a breakdown of each individual video. Like, for example, the video presents a game show style setup with a group of males attempting to identify various objects that are typically associated with female or feminine, women or feminine hygiene. The setup's been formal. There's a hook. It tells us what the hook is, what the video style is, the vibe, I guess, if you will. It gives us a summary as well and tells us what the winning elements are. So let's run through how to make that happen. First thing we got to do is get the video and turn it from a URL and find the data that sits inside of it. So that's what this node in here does to be able to pull that out, because the URL is not going to do us any good in this instance, at least. Then we've got some code in here and this is a lot of gymnastics to be able to make it happen. Well, 2 nodes, not really a lot, but for us to be able to then within this entire, all this data that sits in here within this entire array, be able to pull out what the video URL is specifically in here. That's the one that we want, not what was fed in earlier. From there, we're then going to turn it into a binary file so that we can feed this binary file and upload it to Google Gemini. Just follow the settings in here. This is just a lot of hygiene stuff, really, to be able to convert it to what we need to have it converted to. Then we upload to Gemini. This is where you will need your Google Gemini API, and to be able to do so, you just got to go to AI Studio, Google, create your API key, and take that API key and throw it into your query auth. By the way, again, if you go down below and click on the link, it's not only the workflow, but it's also a step-by-step guide that can actually take you through how to get these APIs if you haven't gotten them before, right? API keys for Anthropic, for Google Gemini, for your Google Cloud also, so that you can have the Google Sheets API access. various different portions in here. Anyway, down in here, we've got several settings that need to be filled in because that is what the API call requires. And once this is here, we upload it to Gemini. We want to make sure that we wait 5 seconds for the upload to be completed from us to the Gemini Files API, the Google Files API, and then that's where we get the analysis. You can see in here, for example, the state we captured the data when it got sent up was processing, and the source is uploaded, but the state is really what we want to look for. If you do not have this wait node in here, what could happen here is this error is out and it breaks your flow, and you've got to go in there and deal with the error um, because of the fact that we have to make sure that this is active. Sometimes what will happen is you do a run and you'll get something that says file is not active. The state of the file is not active, and hence I cannot do my analysis. So once we run through the analysis portion, let's actually talk through this, and then I can talk you through what comes out the other side. Okay. This is the JSON file. This is the JSON format, sorry, that needs to get fed into this API call. These two are dynamic. By now, I think you would know how the dynamic part works in terms of expressions. But the text in here, this is where we want to give Gemini the instructions around how to interpret the data that we're feeding in so that it gives us what we want. So let me just read this off for you. You are an expert ad creative analyst for e-commerce brands. Analyze this TikTok video. Here's the analysis framework. Give us an overview. Give us your hook analysis, what the visual storytelling is, engagement techniques, target audience, the demo as well as the interest targeted, the winning elements, and give us the summary. And finally, return your analysis strictly as JSON with the fields overview. I'm just repeating what the fields are that we desire. From that, this is what comes out the other side. Because we're telling it strictly gives us JSON, it's going to give it to us in a JSON format with the line break in there as well. This right here, this TikTok video showcases two men possibly affiliated with a clothing brand. This right here, per video, is what goes into this column, visual analysis. And the aggregation of all of these is what goes into the aggregated analysis, which I'll show you next. So essentially, after each run, for within this loop, at the end of it, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. The polling in here is a simple wait 5 seconds just to ensure that the analysis works. So what we're doing here is if you're erroring out because it's not active and it's not fully uploaded, wait for 5 seconds and then loop back and try again. And this is just some error handling in here. Once we finish this, if you remember JSON, line breaks, not human readable, we're formatting it here. We do the same exact thing up here, which is find the video URL to match and then feed it through the cleaned up version of the formatting. And we enrich the row, essentially find that URL row, the row with the right web video URL, and throw in the analysis, this one here that I'm showing you. So hey, workflow, don't add new rows just willy-nilly. Make sure that we're matching against web video URL. So that wraps that portion up. Each time this runs through and it finishes, you'll be able to watch it happen inside of your Google Sheet because it will start to populate one by one, which is kind of cool to watch if you're new to this or you're doing this for the first time, to see the workflow actually play out in front of you. Once all of these are done, we merge them into same style as before. We're pulling out the visual analysis, we're merging the list, and it spits out an array just like this of all of the items as you can see, it's an array, all the items inside of one big block, which is perfect for feeding it then into this aggregated analysis for the visuals. See what I mean? I love the fact that we can go beyond spoken word, especially if you are analyzing a brand that is an apparel brand or any type of brand where a lot of their content is show rather than talk through. So if it's talk through, if you're using this against I don't know, an info type brand, for example, or someone who's a guru or someone who is selling courses, then the transcript is going to work really, really well for you. But if it's content where a lot of it is showing a lot of action and hinges a lot on the editing style, this is on its own is going to fall over. So that's why the visual analysis is so dandy and helpful. Right. Enough of my rant about that. Let's go in through this piece. Let's talk through the system prompt because this is really where a lot of the good stuff happens. Same type of pattern, right? We're telling it what the role is. We're giving it its mission. We're pointing the approach that we want it to take. We're telling it how to think through the data we're giving it. And we are then also here getting the telling it to the way to format the data to give back to us. And then down at the very bottom here, further parts around how to format. But we're giving it an example in here. That's essentially the pattern that I follow as much as possible as a really high level rhetoric or high level kind of frame heuristic rather for setting up these types of prompts. That's the system prompt. And in the user prompt, all we're doing is going, hey, here's the data. It is a flattened array. Analyze them, you following the system prompt, please, and return it in JSON just to double reinforce the JSON portion. Visual analyses, and we're feeding it dynamically the visual analysis, that field right there. So as you can see, this is what comes out. What comes into the context window for the LLM to read. From here, what comes out the other side would be a bunch of unreadable stuff. We want to take it, turn it into readable stuff, and insert that into our visuals, video patterns here. So the analysis in here. So what would populate for you for whatever brand that you choose to do this against is aggregated analysis around all of the different visuals with the different breakdowns, right? What the hooks were, what the engagement style was, the editing style, etc. And it also gives us brand integration patterns, um, as well as ideas for us to test and try. Real quick, let's drive home that point around analysis for visuals in the situation where there is no transcript. So the TikTok video showcases the excitement and energy surrounding a release of a new product line, a new clothing line from the brand. It captures the reaction of the group of friends. So this is all from essentially a vision model, right? And if I go in here and let's play this, there's not a lot of verbal stuff happening. There's a lot of visual stuff happening though. So this is exactly what I mean. Now, if it's a problem solving product or a video that has a lot of that type of problem solving way of delivery, great. But if not, then really this is where we want to rely on this portion in here. Now, a mix of both, amazing. That is where we get a lot of the good stuff. Okay, back to the workflow itself. So effectively, we've gone through and talked through how to build this. Now, let's talk about workflow improvements. Because we're using Google Sheet for now, it is because we're using Google Sheet for now, we don't have a vectorized database. What I mean by vectorized database is something like a PostgreSQL database, for example, with PG vectors switched on. I know it sounds kind of nerdy, but what that means is because it's a vectorized database where we can throw these elements in here into a PostgreSQL database, we can then get an AI agent to actually reference all the different docs inside of that database based off of a query that we ask. So something like, find me videos that don't have any transcripts, don't have any subtitles, but have high levels of excitement. And with the right type of metadata, the AI agent would be able to pull in and search a large volume of rows to then be able to pull in the right types of elements. I'm oversimplifying it here, but that is one way we can turn this into something at a much more robust scale, right? Outside of this demo. Let me talk about this advanced form for a second here, and you'll see what I mean. So the difference between the simple form and the advanced form, number of posts to scrape stays the same. Sort by stays the same. But analysis spectrum, we can go analyze by latest posts, most commented, most shared, or most viewed. So as opposed to in here, for example, we're just taking 10 of them and pulling them in. What if we want 25? What if we want 50? And just because this video here had a million likes, did count, that's likes, it might not necessarily be the highest commented or the highest shared or the highest saved. More likes, more plays, less shares though, more saves, and you can see in here less comments on this one. So this advanced version allows us to at least have those settings in here, which we can then, with that type of database, plug it into an AI agent that can reach into that database. Now we've got a lot more to play with. And then we can tell it what posts to analyze, and the rest of it really is stock standard the same, right? So that's just one way to turn it into something that's slightly more advanced. Not full bore, way crazy, but that's one way to do it. Next, of course, is the prompt refinement. I've shown you what those prompts look like. I think that by continually iterating and tweaking to serve you what you want, I gave you that as the starting point. To bring it to that next level, you can then continue to tweak to give you exactly what you would like back. Next one, instead of profile research only, like you saw in the form, right now it's just the profile name, and also you saw in the TikTok scraper, part of the settings is, hey, if we don't want to do profiles, we can just X this out, throw in hashtags instead, hashtags that are relevant to your vertical that you are playing in, that are trending right now, that are meaningful for you. And then you can also include hashtag research. So you change up the way that you're feeding through the JSON and the way that you are setting the fields so that you have the ability to go hashtags, you have the ability to go profiles. Next one, instead of an intake form, you can also then just plug this into, say, for example, a Slack trigger or a Discord trigger, or bring it into, say, for example, ClickUp. So that way, someone fills. You can just keep everyone inside of your go-to platforms, your work management tool or your communications tool, and they don't have to leave to a different destination to fill in the form. They can just use this. You can use a slash command, for example, to activate everything inside of the platform. If it's a comms platform, for example. And final one over here. Now that you know the meat and potatoes, the nuts and bolts of how to pull this type of data out of a short form video file, you can then really apply this to IG Reels. You can apply this to the Facebook Ads API, or Facebook Ads Scraper. You can also do the API if you want. That's the kind of next level up, especially if you want to start uh, analyzing your own ads or ad accounts that you have access to, and you want to call the Graph API. And final one, you can then do a master analysis workflow. So imagine a more complex, complicated workflow where you've got the TikTok element, and then based off of one input, you can then go, what is the Facebook side, Facebook ad side, what is the IG Reel side of things? And now you can really put all that together. All right, there you have it. That was the entire workflow. Talked you through the whole thing. Now that you know how to not only scrape from TikTok, but also perform the different type of analysis, I cannot wait to hear about how are you going to use this to make your brand creative, whether that's ads, whether that's organic strategy better. And if you do start making steps in that type of direction, I can't wait to hear what you've been building in the comments below. All right, I'll see you in the next video.